So Jesus transfigured on the mount because
Yes,
it's the same thing, right?
yes, yes. And this is
Um,
17?
so yeah, in mine it starts at 28 of the previous one, which is
Yeah, so let's,
assuredly I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And then now after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John, his brother, led them up on a high mountain by themselves, and he was transfigured before them. His face shone like sun, and his clothes became as white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. Then Peter answered and said to Jesus, Lord, is it good for us to be here? If you wish, let us make here three tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. This is okay.
this is Peter. Let's see if he's,
While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and suddenly a voice came out of the cloud, saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased, and hear him. When the disciples heard it, they fell on their faces and were greatly afraid. But Jesus came and touched them and said, Arise and do not be afraid. When they had been lifted up, when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. Now, as they came down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, saying, Tell the vision to no one until the Son of Man has risen from the dead. And his disciples asked him, saying, Why then do scribes say that Elijah must come first? Jesus answered and said to them, Indeed, Elijah is coming first and will restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah has come already, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished. Likewise, the Son of Man is also about to suffer at their hands. Then did then the disciples understood that he spoke of them, John the Baptist.
spoke to them of John the Baptist. Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
So in the beginning part,
Yeah,
that's what does it mean to be transfigured?
I know.
Different 2000 years ago than I think what it would have been taken today,
And
which
we
is
have all movies and ideas of what it could look like, don't we? Probably.
right. But I
But
mean, in this, it seems like his face just turned into the sun.
I know. So he was transfigured. So he maybe became kind of transparent, maybe
Well,
in
that's in a lot of descriptions of how people see angels, is like they can't even look at them,
yeah,
partly
his face.
because they're afraid, and then partly because they're very bright.
They're so bright. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Yeah,
And then they bring Elijah and Moses.
yeah, which is interesting. And then Peter is always like the person that's talking of. Maybe we would be like that too.
Right.
But nobody, I think
This
God,
is
the
Simon
Father,
Peter?
yes, yes,
Of
same.
course.
Of I mean, he did get to witness a lot of stuff. But maybe there's.
All right. I mean, think about all the people who didn't speak up and they're not getting to see this.
Right. So this is but they didn't build any tabernacles they didn't do, as far as we know, do
What
what
was
he
that,
said.
like a gravestone? Like
Could be like a little
a, a
worship,
remembrance?
yeah, worship area maybe or something.
Well, it would be more like
Tabernacle.
an altar.
Yeah, maybe that might be a better idea.
Okay.
But I mean, who speaks? God the Father, right?
The big man upstairs makes an
Yeah,
appearance. He
thank you,
comes
Lord.
down.
And we
He
know
done
that they're right, that they're all one, Jesus, the Father, and the Holy Spirit, but we can see them in their individual parts, right?
is it not in so they can say more credible things?
Yeah, you mean like to,
Well, think, look. Just think,
Okay.
right? If you're
Okay.
God or anything that you have to think of other things. Like he probably understands that like these people now have to go out and other people have to believe this.
Yes, yes.
So you might as well add in like, hey, I didn't hallucinate a voice and I heard it and it came from a shining cloud
Right.
or however they would have described it, which probably
Yeah.
would have been better
So
than
probably
that.
like this, I guess, because it must have got back to Matthew and he wrote it down, right?
Like somebody,
While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed him, and suddenly, while he was still speaking, so it's kind of like,
somebody interrupted him.
right, kind of, yes. And suddenly a voice came out of the cloud saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him." I've heard a lot of preachers say, like, the emphasis is on Jesus, not on Moses and Elijah, where Peter was going, right? He was going to three tabernacles, but then when the Father speaks, he's saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him." He doesn't put any
Oh,
emphasis,
right.
you
You
know.
guys already didn't listen to me. Listen to him.
Right, right. So then there's, that's the end of that conversation with Peter, it sounds like, right?
And then some more foreshadowing, which is like, I need to, he doesn't
So,
even say himself, but he says son of man, but he's like, don't say this until he rises from the dead.
right, which is like speaking in third person, as we would say today, right?
But in the
Tell,
previous chapter, he had predicted his own death and resurrection.
right, yes.
So
So Peter
even,
knew better than to answer back this time. uh,
but it is interesting what he said afterwards,
yeah,
which is like,
I know.
Elijah already came back.
So that's what he's saying. And then this is Jesus speaking. Now
Hmm.
he's referencing where I think he referenced before about that John the Baptist. Some say he's Elijah, and they said Jesus had kind of agreed with that, but here
Okay.
he is really agreeing, right? But I say to Elijah has come already, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished. Likewise, the Son of Man, which is him, right, is about to suffer at their hands. Like the same people kind of that killed John the Baptist. Like it's here, right in the same time. So
Right.
that's why 13, the disciples understood that he spoke to them of John the Baptist. So this time it seems like they totally got it. Now, um, Malachi 4:6. Malachi is where it talks about Elijah coming back. 4:6. Well, 4:5 really probably. So Malachi says, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, the hearts of children to their father, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse." So in a way, it sounds like you could think of it as when Jesus is coming back again, but because of what Jesus says, then it does seem like it's also or just John the Baptist. It
Right.
could be both. Sometimes prophecies are both, you know,
I mean,
like they're for a time and a different time. But this is Jesus saying, right? Indeed, Elijah is coming first and will restore all things,
it's
which
definitely
is,
put together in a way to where like I think they're agreeing that Elijah was John the Baptist,
yes, exactly. Yes, yes,
which is where's Moses, dude?
right. They didn't write, but they didn't ask about them, right? Because in 10, it just says, "Why do the scribes say that Elijah must come first?"
Well, isn't that Elijah appeared where in the Old Testament?
Yes, he appeared back in like in the age of the kings,
Which was
second
like
king.
we're gonna say a heralding in of an age. Like, what did he
Well, the main
prophesy?
thing is that the main thing with Elijah was that he didn't die. He went up in a chariot, like he and the other prophet Elisha with like Elijah, and
Mhm.
then Elisha, Elisha. Of course, this is in English. Could be different in the original language, it might be a little different, but I think of it only as a letter change. But anyway, they're two different guys. His assistant seen him going up, disappearing as opposed to dying. He didn't die per se.
What were they preaching?
What was he preaching? Well, he was rebuking people to come to God. Like he was really preaching about God.
So he
What?
wasn't prophesizing the coming of Jesus?
Not that I remember that part now. I mean, he was pointing people to God, the Father. I know what you're saying. Yes, I see. And he did lots of miracles. And there was times when they were rebelling, and he
Mhm.
had this big thing. Elijah had they were worshiping Baal, and they had a altar, and then he's like, he made an altar, and he's like, you call down your gods to burn this up, to burn up your thing, and I'll do the same. And he even put water on his. So he let them try, and nothing was happening. Then he did, and God burnt all his, and then he burnt theirs as well.
Burn everybody's.
Yeah, like it was a big thing. And then he was like, you know, if God can do this, will you follow him? Kind of. It was definitely like that.
Well, I guess in that aspect, John the Baptist was just
Was
teaching people about God. He wasn't teaching people about Jesus.
No, well, right. Well, he was teaching people a little bit. He knew he was the forerunner of Jesus, like that he was sent to guide people to to come to Jesus, but to come to God also, right? Is that what you mean? God, the Father and the Son, the whole.
Are they then just comparing the timing of like Elijah to that of John the Baptist?
And I think Elijah lived in the wilderness a lot, like John did. Like there was a lot of similarities, I think, in that regard too.
Yeah,
What was your question? Because I'm not sure that I answered your question. I'm sorry.
I mean,
I think because the prophecy too, right?
I'm just trying to figure out why they brought up Elijah.
Oh, well, because they seen him probably is what made them think of him, right? They seen
Okay.
him at the thing with Jesus, right? So I think that's probably why they brought him up. I think, maybe because he's saying,
Well, why?
tell
Because they're
why
asking him, why do scribes say? Why do I
why
care what scribes say? We're answering a question that was asked by the apostles.
yeah. So maybe they're confused because now they've seen Elijah and they're like, why do the scribes say that Elijah must come first when
Well, it's like this. Are
they
we
didn't
trying to
see?
pull like under the question came from the apostles?
Yes, yes.
I'm not going to invalidate them as people, but maybe it's not the thing that
It's probably right. It's probably just the three disciples that went up with him, right? Peter, John, and James, as opposed to them all, because they're still
right, but we
there.
shouldn't care what the scribes say. So the question shouldn't exist. So Jesus's answer to the question didn't need to exist either.
But then they're curious like us humans. Maybe we would have asked the same question.
Right, but then are you looking for information in the wrong places then? Talking to myself.
Okay, I got you. Hmm. I mean, does God want it? Right, right. Were they looking to Elijah or the scribes? Yeah, I see what you're saying. Instead of looking to God, they were saying, why did the scribes say that? Or are they just totally trying to understand why did Elijah appear with Jesus? And now they had the scribes saying about Elijah, so maybe it's a good time.
Yeah, but like listen to what he said. But I say to you, Elijah has come already, and they did not know him, but did whatever they wished. Like they didn't even know he existed.
They didn't realize that John the
So,
Baptist was Elijah. Is that what you mean? Or
right, they draw no connections. So
right.
then, how are anybody saying that the scribes?
So the
Who's
scribes are saying,
saying Elijah? Who are these scribes?
so I think that the scribes would have been like the people that studied the Old Testament, the thing, and they would have known what Malachi said.
Okay.
Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet.
And they
So I
said,
yeah, so I think and this was the very end of the Old Testament. Like it's like the last
hmm,
part of it. So it probably would have been pretty like
we'll
the
move
last.
on.
Yeah, I think,
A boy is healed.
yay. So should we have peace or keep going, right? Well, you just gave them, we might as well.
We'll have some peace and then we'll keep going.
And then next time,
Next
please.
time, a boy is healed.